In 2003, a documentary crew in Siberia was going through old Soviet footage from the 1970s, looking for material for a film they were making about abandoned research stations. They found something on one of those reels that no one was supposed to see, something that explained why an entire team of scientists had simply stopped reporting in one February morning in 1978, and why the Soviet government had sealed every single file related to that station for the next 40 years. This is that story. On the morning of the 3rd of February, 1978, a 31-year-old Soviet geologist named Alexei Voronov sat at a metal desk in a research station in the Yamalo-Nenets region of western Siberia and wrote the last entry he would ever make in his official field journal. The entry was 8 words long. It came back, "We are not going outside." Alexei had been stationed at Research Post 7 for 11 months. He had arrived the previous March with a team of 6, 4 geologists, 1 meteorologist, and 1 radio operator named Yuri. Their task was straightforward: monitor the permafrost levels along a 40-kilometer stretch of the Ob River Basin, record temperature fluctuations, log any unusual seismic activity, and report back to Moscow every Tuesday and Friday at exactly 0800 hours. For the first 8 months, everything was normal, routine, the kind of slow, methodical work that fills journals with numbers and tells you nothing surprising. Alexei wrote home to his wife Natasha every 2 weeks. He described the landscape as beautiful in a way that felt almost violent: endless white, total silence, the kind of cold that gets inside and stays there. He told her he missed her cooking. He told her he was counting the days. He told her he would be home by April. He was never coming home. The first sign that something was wrong at Post 7 came on the 14th of October, 1977, when Yuri, the radio operator, sent an unusual transmission to Moscow. It was not the scheduled report. It came in at 3:17 inches the morning, and it consisted of only one line: "Something is moving outside the perimeter. Please advise." Moscow logged the transmission. A supervisor noted it in the daily communications file, and then nothing. No follow-up was sent. No one called back. The transmission was filed and forgotten. In Moscow in 1977, you did not ask too many questions about what was happening in a remote Siberian research station. There were more important things to pay attention to. The scheduled reports from Post 7 continued normally through October, November, December. Numbers, temperatures, permafrost readings, everything routine. But if you looked closely at those reports, and someone eventually did, you would notice something. Starting in November, the handwriting changed. Not dramatically, not enough that anyone would catch it immediately, but the pressure on the pen was different. The letters were slightly larger, The numbers were written more carefully, like someone who was concentrating very hard on appearing normal. Alexei Voronov had beautiful handwriting. His colleagues at the institute back in Moscow used to joke about it. They said his field journals looked like typeset documents. But starting in November 1977, the journals from Post 7 did not look like that anymore. Something had changed. The last scheduled transmission from Post 7 arrived on Friday, the 3rd of February 1978, at exactly 0800 hours. It was logged by the duty operator in Moscow. Temperature readings, permafrost measurements, standard entries. The duty operator noted that Yuri's voice sounded slightly different than usual, but did not elaborate further. In his log, the following Tuesday, no transmission came. Moscow waited until noon, then until 1800, then until midnight. Nothing. The same thing happened Friday, and the following Tuesday, and the following Friday. By the 3rd week of silence, the supervisor who had filed Yuri's 3:17 a.m. transmission 4 months earlier began to feel something he couldn't quite name. He pulled the October file. He read the transmission again. Something is moving outside the perimeter. Please advise. He thought about this for a long time, and then he sent a rescue team. What they found when they arrived at Post 7 10 days later, I want to describe carefully because the details matter. The station was intact. No structural damage. No broken windows. No signs of fire or explosion. The lights were still on. Inside the main building, the generator was still running. The front door was locked. From the inside, one of the rescue team members had to break a window to get in. Inside, everything was in order. Beds were made. Equipment was clean. Food was stored properly. The journals were open on Alexei's desk. The last entry dated February 3rd. 8 words. It came back. We are not going outside. But there were no people. All 6 members of the team were gone. Their winter gear was still there. Their boots were by the door. Their coats were hanging on the hooks where they always hung them. 6 men had walked out of Post 7 in minus 40 degrees Celsius, without their coats, without their boots, without any of their equipment, and they had not come back. The rescue team spent 3 days searching the surrounding area. They found one thing about 400 meters from the station. In the deep snow, they found a pair of glasses. They belonged to the meteorologist, a man named Pavel, who without his glasses was essentially blind. Pavel would not have walked 400 meters into Siberian wilderness in the dark and minus 40 degrees without his glasses under any circumstances. There was no other trace of any of the 6 men. The Soviet government classified everything related to Post 7 within 48 hours of the rescue team's report. The families of the 6 men were told there had been an accident with the generator, carbon monoxide. All 6 men had died in their sleep. Their bodies had been recovered and cremated in accordance with protocol. The families received official death certificates and small state pensions, and that was that. For 25 years, no one outside of a very small group of Soviet and later Russian officials knew what had really been found at Post 7. Then, in 2003, a documentary crew was given limited access to a Soviet-era archive in Novosibirsk to look for footage for a film they were making about abandoned Arctic infrastructure. They were not looking for Post 7. They had never heard of Post 7. They were just going through reels of old footage, field documentation, survey recordings, training films, when one of the crew members found a reel that was labeled incorrectly. It was filed under a meteorological survey code from 1975, but when they played it, the date stamp in the corner read November 1977, and the location code matched Post 7. What was on that reel had been shot by Yuri, the radio operator, who had apparently been using the station's 16mm documentation camera to record something he wanted reported to Moscow. The footage lasted 11 minutes and 40 seconds. The first 6 minutes showed the exterior of Post 7, shot through the small window above Yuri's radio station. At night, in what appeared to be a snowstorm. At first, there was nothing visible except snow and darkness. But then, about 300 meters from the station, at the edge of the tree line, something was moving. The camera quality was poor. The distance was significant, but it was clear that something was there, something large, moving in a way that did not match any animal that should have been in that region. It was moving upright, but it was not moving the way a person moves. For 6 minutes, Yuri filmed this thing at the tree line, moving back and forth, stopping, then moving again, always at the same distance, never coming closer, never going away. And then at 6 minutes and 4 seconds into the footage, it stopped, and it stayed still for almost 90 seconds. It stood completely motionless at the edge of the tree line, and then very slowly, it turned, and it moved directly toward the station. The camera cuts out at 6 minutes and 40 seconds. The remaining 5 minutes of footage is black. No audio, just black. The documentary crew did not know what to do with what they had found. They consulted with a professor of Soviet history at Novosibirsk State University, who had been helping them with their research. He watched the footage 3 times, and then he told them the name of a retired FSB archivist living in Yekaterinburg, who he thought might know something. The documentary crew drove to Yekaterinburg. They found the archivist, a man in his late 70s, living alone in a small apartment. They showed him the footage. He watched it without speaking. When it ended, he sat quietly for a long time, and then he said there were 4 other stations. He told them that between 1972 and 1984, 4 other Soviet research posts in remote Siberian locations had gone silent, without explanation. Different regions, different teams, different years, all 6, all gone. In 3 of those cases, the personal belongings of the researchers had been found inside the stations: coats by the door, boots on the floor, journals open on desks. In one case, the last journal entry was 2 words: "Don't open." The archivist told them that an internal Soviet commission had investigated all 5 cases together. In 1984, the commission's final report was 340 pages long. He had read it once. He had never spoken about it to anyone. He said the report reached a conclusion. He would not say what that conclusion was. He said only one more thing before he asked them to leave. He said that when the rescue team arrived at Post 7 in February 1978 and broke the window to get inside, they had found the journals. On Alexei's desk, they had found the 8-word final entry, but they had also found something the official report never mentioned. Under the desk, pushed back against the wall, was a second journal, a personal one, not an official field journal, Alexei's own notebook. The rescue team had taken it. It had been classified, along with everything else. The archivist had read it as part of his access to the commission files. He said that the final entry in Alexei's personal journal was longer than 8 words. He said it covered 3 full pages. He would not say what it described. He said only that after reading it, he had not been able to sleep normally for almost 2 years, and that he had made a decision at that point in his career never to look at any of the other files related to those 5 stations. The documentary crew never made their film about Arctic infrastructure. They made a different film. It was released in 2006 to very limited distribution. The archivist refused to appear in it. He died in 2009. The footage from Post 7 is currently held in a private archive in Germany. The 340-page Soviet Commission report from 1984 has never been declassified. Alexei Voronov's personal journal has never been publicly located. His wife, Natasha, was told he died of carbon monoxide. She believed it for the rest of her life. She died in 2014. She never stopped waiting for him to come home. If this story stayed with you, subscribe, because we have more, and they only get darker.